Okay, we finished our basic tiles. We have the inside tiles and we have the outside tiles. We have them all the right color. We have our corner ones over top of the inside ones. And now we're ready to do the detail on the tiles. So the first thing we're going to need to do is I want to put this layer in outline mode. And so by coming over to this tile layer here, I can command click on this eyeball. So I hold the command key down on the keyboard and I click on this eyeball and it turns that layer into outlines. So you can see these black outlines of my tile, you just don't see the color. That allows me to see through and see through to the detail, but I can also see the outline of the tile where the detail is going to go onto. So if I zoom in here, a couple things you guys need to know or look for. One, we need to look to see if our guides, the outline of our tile, and the actual picture of our tile are still centered. If these three things are not still centered, we need to do something. So if for instance your picture here, I'm going to lock this, I'm going to unlock my picture. Say your picture is off center here. You're going to need to recenter it. Recenter it to the outline of your tile and your guidelines. We want all of those centered so that when we start doing the detail, everything will come out correctly. So now that that is centered, I'm going to lock that layer and I'm going to click off. So I have all three of those centered. I'm good to go. The next thing you need to look for is, you see these outlines. I have one black line, and anywhere you go on my tile I have one black line. I don't have multiple black lines, so every square is kind of sharing a side here. If I come in here and I move this over and I move this one over a little bit, if you are seeing double black lines and a double black line and double corners and a double black line here, that means your tiles are not aligned correctly and something is wrong. You're going to need to redo those tiles. So you can start from step one. It should take you about 5 or 10 minutes to do that now that you've done that one time. Make sure your tiles are aligned and you have one line here. So these two tiles are sharing this line. These two tiles are sharing this line. Okay? Now that you've checked those two things, or those couple of things, I want you to lock this layer so that we cannot move it. You have the picture locked, you have the guides locked, and I want you to come down here and create a new layer. I'm going to double click on that layer and I'm going to label that details. Click OK. Now this layer is toggled to outline right here. So you can tell it's on outline because this one, the visibility is visible and the eyeball is dark or black. This one is in outline and it's kind of white. So if I can command click on this eyeball, I will now be drawing correctly here. So I'm going to show you a new tool, and we're going to be using the blob tool to trace our details. And we're going to start with this blue cross here. I want to trace that. So if I come over here to my tool palette, I can find my blob brush. If you hold your mouse over top of the tools, they'll tell you what it is. So the blob brush looks like a paintbrush with kind of a square blobish looking thing underneath it. I'm going to click on that. Now before we start to use it, I want to show you a couple things. One, if I draw with my blob brush and then I draw again, right now what I draw isn't selected. and if I open up my layer, I've created 3 separate things. So if I click with my black arrow, each one of these are separate. I don't want that. I want it to, when I draw over top of something, so if I come with my blob brush, if I draw over top of this, I want this to be one object. So I'm going to have to change some options here. So delete that. Let me delete that. So I have nothing in my layer right now. I'm going to double click on my blob brush over here. So I found it in my tool palette and I'm double clicking on it. That brings up this option menu. And right now you can select keep selected. That means when I draw something with my blob brush, there it is going to be selected. And then you can have this selected, merge only with selections. That means if what I drew last is selected, it will merge with it. So now when I draw with my blob brush, it stays selected. Notice the outline here, the blue outline with the different points. When I draw again, notice it merges. Now that's one object, and even over here in my layers palette, that is one object. It is not 2 different paths. If I draw again, it merges. This is what I need here. Now, if I unselect that and then draw, that created a new path. So if this blob isn't selected, it will not merge. Okay? So you have to have it selected. So if that's selected there and I draw into it, it will now merge. Okay, so those are 2 key things that you need to change. I will delete those. We're starting new. So you're double clicking on your blob brush over here in the tool palette and you're making sure these 2 are selected. I'm now going to zoom into this blue cross. I could trace the whole outline of my blue cross here. But 1, it's going to take a long time, and 2, if I trace this side here and then I come over here to trace this side by freehand, the 2 aren't going to be the same. I want all sides of this cross to be the exact same. So what I'm going to do is I'm only going to trace out 1/8 of this. I'm going to trace down this center line and I'm going to trace over here, and then I'm going to reflect this over to here. I'm then going to copy that or rotate it to here, to here, to here. So all I'm using my blob brush to do is trace out this one part of the cross, and I'm going to use that for the rest of it. So a couple things with your blob brush, there's bracket keys kind of above the enter key, above the comma, and you can make, oops, accidentally hit the wrong tool. You can make your blob brush bigger by hitting the right bracket, and you can make it smaller by hitting the left bracket. You need it small enough that you can get detail, but big enough that you can fill it in. So right now I'm going to start in this tile up here. I'm going to trace into my next tile. I'm going to trace along this detail here. Come up here. You can let go of the mouse if you want, as long as it's selected. My blob brush will create one image. I'm going to come along the edge here. It doesn't have to be exact, but I want it to be close. And don't worry about the inside right now. Now, if for some reason you kind of went out of whack here, like that, or over here, there's a couple things you could do. One, you could come over here to your eraser tool, kind of underneath your blob brush, and you could erase it as long as it's selected. Okay? 2, what you could do is you could go to your pen tool right here, and on your pen tool you could go to delete anchor points, and then you could delete these different points here. And then it kind of smooth it out, going back to normal. So that's two different things that you could do. You could use your pen tool and delete the different anchors, or you could use the erase tool. And the pen tool, say you're over here and you have multiple anchors, you should delete some of those so it's kind of more of a nice smooth edge there. Once you're done that, you can go back to your blob brush, and what I need to do is I need to go straight up my center line, making sure that I'm splitting my center line, basically covering it up. Okay, so I went up my center line. I have I don't know, stuff on either side of it, and then I'm going to go ahead and connect my drawing here. I then want to fill it in, so you can make your blob brush a little bigger if you want by hitting the bracket keys above the enter, but if you make it too big, just be careful. You don't want to ruin the outside edge of your drawing there. I'm just going to fix that just a little bit there. Okay, now when I zoom in here, down here I have a lot of little points. I'm going to go back to my pen tool, and I'm going to delete some of these points here. Another thing that you can do is if you go into the pencil tool and you go to the smooth tool, you can trace along where you want to be smooth, and it will smooth out your edges a little bit. Okay, get rid of some of those points. So there's a couple different things that you can do there. Come up here, smooth it out. Now I have that drawn. I now need to give that a stroke and a fill color. Notice inside there isn't any little holes or pockets, so I'm going to come up here. I'm going to give that a stroke of black, and I'm going to give that a fill color. Nope, sorry, I'm still on stroke. I'm giving it a stroke of black. I'm going to give it a fill color of blue. And I'm going to come down here, and you see how I have these extra little spikes that I don't necessarily want? What I can do is I can come into my group, and if I have any little extra things like this, I can go ahead and delete them, see if that fixes it. If not, I can also come in here with my black arrow tool, and I can see what the deal is. With my white arrow tool, click on this point, see if I can adjust it and delete it. If I can't, later on in one of these tutorials I will help you delete it better here. Let's see. But for right now, let me show you the next step, and then I can come back to that and fix that. So what we're going to do is we're going to reflect this over to the other side. So I selected it with my black arrow tool. I'm going to come down here to the reflect tool. It is hidden underneath your rotate tool. I need to select a point to reflect. Well, this center line and this center point is a good point, so I'm going to option click on it. It is saying, do you want to reflect vertical? No. Horizontal? No, that doesn't seem right. And angle, I could do that. Well, it seems strange here. It's not reflecting the way I want to. If I hit cancel, and remember how we changed our constraint angle to 45 degrees? Well, I need to change that back to 0. So you need to hit Command D. Oh, sorry. I'll undo that. Hit Command K. Command K is going to bring up your preferences, and you can change your constraint angle to 0. Another way to do that is to go up to Illustrator, go to Preferences, and go to General, and then you can change your constraint angle back to 0. Now with my object selected, I can try this one more time. Option click on this center line. It now reflects it correctly. I want to hit copy. It is overlapping right now. Okay, so this one is a little bigger and they are overlapping, but I have this black line right through the center. Well, I don't want that black line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to use my Shape Builder tool. And with my Shape Builder tool, I need to have both objects selected. So since I already selected my Shape Builder, if I hold my Command and Shift key down, I can select things. My black arrow tool pops up, and now with both objects selected of what I want to shape build, I can drag this over and it creates one object right now. Over here, you see how it made these little squares? I can now, oh, sorry. I don't want everything selected. I just want that. I can delete that. And I can delete that. Okay? So now I just have one grouping here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate that around and then shape build that. So with my black arrow tool, I select this. With my rotate tool, which is underneath my reflect tool, I'm going to command copy, or sorry, option click. Option click where I want to rotate around. I want to rotate around 90 degrees. I'm going to hit copy. With this selected, you can use your shortcut key Command D, and that will transform again. It will redo what you just did. I now have 4 shapes together. I need them all selected, so I can select them either with my black arrow tool, Shift Select, and then come over to my Shape Builder tool, or if you already selected with your Shape Builder tool, what you can do is hold the Command key down and the Shift key. It goes back to your black arrow tool and you can select things. Okay, I'm going to let go of that, and now I'm going to shape build. So you just basically drag the line between what you want to be combined over to what you're combining it with. You might have to do this a couple times here. If for some reason you are left with a couple of black weird shapes, triangle shapes, you can delete them over here in your layers palette. If not, you should have a blue cross looking thing and you are good to go. That is it for this part. The next part we will get into some of these other details.